Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Most people experience rejection and immediately make it personal. They believe it's a statement about their worth, their potential, or their abilities. They internalize the no, allowing it to plant seeds of doubt in their mind. But rejection is never truly about the person being rejected. It's about circumstances, timing, perspectives, and sometimes even the limitations of the other person involved. The most successful people in the world have faced rejection repeatedly, but instead of letting it define them, they used it to redirect their path towards something even greater. Imagine an entrepreneur who pitches their idea to 100 investors and gets rejected by 99. Most people would see that as failure, but the one investor who says yes could change everything. The difference between those who succeed and those who give up is not that successful people avoid rejection. It's that they refuse to let it stop them. They understand that rejection is simply part of the journey, a necessary process that filters out the wrong opportunities so they can find the right ones. People often take rejection as a sign to stop trying. They hear one no and immediately back off, assuming they're not good enough or that their idea isn't valuable. But history is filled with stories of people who faced massive rejection only to break through later. Steven Spielberg was rejected from film school multiple times. J.K. Rowling was turned down by 12 publishers before Harry Potter became a global phenomenon. Colonel Sanders heard over 1,000 rejections before someone believed in his chicken recipe. If they had stopped at the first rejection, they never would have built their legacies. The rejection didn't mean they weren't good enough. It simply meant they hadn't found the right opportunity yet. The way to shift your mindset about rejection is to stop seeing it as failure and start seeing it as feedback. Every rejection is telling you something valuable. It might be showing you where you need to improve, or it might be guiding you away from the wrong path and towards something better. The problem is that most people are so consumed by the emotions of rejection, embarrassment, frustration, disappointment, that they miss the lesson. But when you detach your emotions from the event and see it as a learning experience, rejection becomes one of the most powerful tools for growth. In relationships, business, and personal development, rejection often happens because there's a misalignment. If someone doesn't hire you, it could mean the role wasn't the right fit for your skills. If a potential client turns you down, it might mean they weren't the right audience for what you offer. If someone rejects you personally, it might mean they weren't the right person to build a connection with. When you stop taking rejection as a personal attack and start seeing it as a form of redirection, you free yourself from unnecessary pain and open yourself up to better opportunities. High achievers don't just accept rejection, they anticipate it. They know it's part of the process, so they don't take it as a final answer. They refine their approach, adjust their strategies, and keep moving forward. When Thomas Edison was inventing the light bulb, he failed over 1,000 times, but he didn't see those failures as defeats. He saw them as lessons, each one bringing him closer to the right solution. That's the mindset that separates those who rise from those who quit. The key is to rewire your brain to expect rejection without letting it slow you down. Instead of dreading it, embrace it. See it as a filter that removes the wrong people, the wrong opportunities, and the wrong timing from your path. Every no is bringing you closer to a yes. Every setback is setting you up for a breakthrough. The moment you stop making rejection about your value and start using it as a tool for growth, you become unstoppable. Confidence is not something that is given to you by others. It is something you must create from within. Most people live their entire lives basing their confidence on external validation. They feel good when they are accepted, praised, or recognized, and they feel unworthy when they are criticized, rejected, or ignored. This is a dangerous way to live because it means that your self-worth is always at the mercy of other people's opinions. The truth is, if your confidence depends on how others see you, you will always be chasing approval, afraid to take risks, and held back by the fear of rejection. The most powerful people in the world do not need constant reassurance from others to believe in themselves. They have an unshakable foundation of self-worth that comes from within. They understand that confidence is not a feeling you wait for, it is a muscle that you build. Just like you don't wake up one day with a strong, healthy body without putting in the work, you don't wake up with bulletproof confidence without conditioning your mind daily. The problem is, most people think confidence is something you either have or don't have, when in reality, it's something you create through repetition and action. People who struggle with confidence often believe they need to feel confident before they can take action. But this is the biggest lie that holds people back. Confidence does not come first. Action comes first. You don't wait to feel ready before you step up. You step up. And that's what makes you ready. The moment you push past your fear and take action, you prove to yourself that you are capable. And that's when confidence starts to grow. But if you keep waiting for the perfect moment when you feel completely fearless, that moment will never come. Think about any skill you have developed in your life. The first time you tried, you were probably uncertain, awkward, maybe even afraid. But the more you did it, the more natural it became. Confidence works the same way. The more you take action despite fear, the more you train yourself to believe in your own ability. Every time you step up, every time you push through discomfort, you are reinforcing the identity of someone who is capable, strong, and unstoppable. The mistake most people make is that they allow external circumstances to dictate how they feel about themselves. They give their power away by believing that their confidence depends on success, validation, or approval from others. But true confidence is unshakable, because it does not fluctuate based on external results. It comes from knowing deep down that no matter what happens, you are enough. It comes from trusting yourself to handle whatever comes your way. One of the most powerful ways to build unshakable confidence is to stop seeking permission. Too many people hold themselves back because they are waiting for someone else to validate them. They wait for someone to tell them they are good enough, ready enough, qualified enough. But no one is coming to give you permission. The most successful people in the world didn't wait for approval. They decided. They decided they were worthy. They decided they were capable. And because they made that decision, they took action, and that action created results. Confidence is not something you receive. It's something you generate. It is not something that appears out of nowhere. It is something you build through experience. It is a decision to trust yourself, to believe in your own worth, and to take action even when you feel uncertain. And the more you do it, the stronger it becomes. When you stop looking for confidence outside of yourself and start creating it from within, you become unstoppable, because nothing and no one can take it away from you. Most people fear rejection because they put too much weight on a single opportunity, conversation, or outcome. They approach situations with the mindset that if this one thing doesn't work out, they have failed. This scarcity mindset makes every rejection feel devastating because they have attached too much significance to one single moment. The truth is, rejection only stings when there aren't enough opportunities in play. When you take more shots, when you expose yourself to more possibilities, one rejection becomes insignificant because there are 100 more doors to knock on. Look at the most successful salespeople, entrepreneurs, and performers in the world. They are not successful because they avoid rejection. They are successful because they have been rejected more than anyone else. They know rejection is just part of the process, so they don't dwell on it. They move on to the next opportunity, the next person, the next attempt. This is what separates them from the people who let one rejection shatter their confidence. The people who win in life are the ones who are willing to take more shots than anyone else. They don't let one no stop them because they know that the next yes is just around the corner. The problem with most people is that they only take a handful of shots, and when they get rejected, they take it personally. They think rejection means they aren't good enough, that they should stop trying, or that they are not cut out for success. But if you only make 5 attempts at something and get rejected 3 times, that's a 60% rejection rate. If you make 100 attempts and get rejected 30 times, that's only a 30% rejection rate, and you now have 70 wins instead of just 2. The more shots you take, the more rejections you'll get, but the more wins you'll create. People who fear rejection often avoid situations where they might get rejected, and this keeps them stuck. They stay in their comfort zone, playing small, avoiding risks, and convincing themselves that they are protecting their self-esteem, but in reality, they are just reinforcing the belief that rejection is something to fear. The only way to stop being afraid of rejection is to expose yourself to it over and over again until it loses its power over you. The more you put yourself out there, the less rejection affects you because you've trained yourself to see it as normal, as just another part of the journey. Think about an athlete who takes 1,000 shots in practice every day. They don't expect every single shot to go in, but they take the shots anyway because they know that the more they shoot, the better they get. Confidence is built through repetition, not perfection. The same principle applies to rejection. The more times you put yourself in situations where rejection is possible, the more resilient you become. Eventually, you stop fearing rejection altogether because you know that for every no you hear, a yes is coming. The people who live extraordinary lives are not the ones who avoid rejection. They are the ones who have trained themselves to see rejection as irrelevant. They know that rejection is just part of the process, that it doesn't define them, and that it has no real power unless they give it power. They take more shots than anyone else, knowing that success is not about avoiding rejection, but about taking enough action that rejection becomes meaningless. When you adopt this mindset, you no longer see rejection as something to fear. You see it as just another step on the path to success. Rejection itself is never the real issue. The real issue is how you choose to respond to it. Some people take rejection as a final verdict on their abilities, their worth, or their future. Others see it as a temporary obstacle, a stepping stone, a lesson, or even fuel for their next breakthrough. The difference between these two types of people is not the number of times they face rejection, because everyone faces it, but rather the meaning they attach to it. The way you respond to rejection determines whether you stay stuck in self-doubt or rise stronger than before. Most people experience rejection and immediately allow it to define them. If they don't get hired for a job, they assume they aren't good enough. If someone they're interested in doesn't reciprocate, they assume they aren't attractive or worthy of love. If their business idea is turned down, they assume they don't have what it takes to succeed. These assumptions create a negative loop where every rejection reinforces feelings of inadequacy, making them less likely to take risks in the future. Over time, this leads to playing small, avoiding opportunities, and settling for a life far below their potential. The people who win in life operate differently. They have trained themselves to detach their self-worth from rejection. Instead of seeing rejection as a reflection of who they are, they see it as feedback, as data, as information that can help them improve and grow. And when they hear no, they don't internalize it as personal failure. They analyze it, learn from it, and move forward with even greater determination. This mindset shift is what allows them to keep pushing forward when others give up. Think about some of the most successful people in history. They were rejected over and over again, but instead of seeing rejection as a reason to stop, they used it as fuel. Thomas Edison failed thousands of times before perfecting the light bulb. Each failure was not a reason to quit. It was a lesson that got him one step closer to success. Walt Disney was told he lacked imagination. Oprah Winfrey was fired from her first television job. Steven Spielberg was rejected from film school multiple times. If these people had let rejection define them, their stories would have ended before they even started. Your ability to handle rejection determines how far you go in life. If you let every setback discourage you, you will never take the necessary risks to achieve greatness. If you use every rejection as an opportunity to improve, you will become unstoppable. The key is to ask better questions when facing rejection. Instead of asking, why is this happening to me? Ask, what can I learn from this? Instead of saying, I guess I'm just not good enough, say, how can I improve and come back stronger? The questions you ask shape your focus, and your focus determines your actions. Most people fear rejection because they are afraid of what it means about them. But rejection only has meaning if you give it meaning. If someone says no to you, it does not mean you are unworthy. It simply means they were not the right person, opportunity, or situation for you. If a door closes, it does not mean you are not capable. It simply means that door was not meant for you, or that you need to knock on more doors. When you shift your perspective and stop making rejection personal, it loses its power over you. The most resilient people in the world see rejection as a necessary part of success. They know that the more rejection they experience, the closer they are to their breakthrough. They understand that every no is bringing them one step closer to a yes. They don't waste time feeling sorry for themselves. They take action, they refine their approach, and they keep moving forward. When you adopt this mindset, rejection stops being something to fear, and it becomes something you embrace as part of the process. Most people fear rejection because they associate it with failure, pain, or embarrassment. The moment they experience rejection, their mind automatically links it to a negative outcome, reinforcing a deep fear of putting themselves out there again. This is why so many people stay stuck, avoiding situations where they might get turned down, criticized, or told no. But what if rejection wasn't something to be feared? What if it was actually the key to building unstoppable confidence and resilience? The only reason rejection feels painful is because of the meaning attached to it. If you can change that meaning, you can change how rejection impacts you forever. Every time you experience rejection, you have two choices. You can see it as proof that you are not good enough, or you can see it as a stepping stone to something greater. People who fear rejection tend to take it personally, as if it is an absolute judgment of their value. They think if I was good enough, they would have said yes. But rejection is rarely that simple. Most of the time, it is about timing, preference, circumstances, or a mismatch in values. It does not define your worth. It simply redirects you toward a better opportunity. The problem is that most people have conditioned themselves to see rejection as a dead end rather than a detour. Think about a child learning to walk. They fall down hundreds of times, but they never think, maybe walking just isn't for me. They don't attach a negative meaning to falling because they haven't been conditioned to see failure as bad. They simply get up and try again until they succeed. But as people grow older, they begin to fear failure, rejection, and discomfort. They start avoiding situations where they might be rejected instead of embracing them as part of the learning process. This is why so many people stay stuck. They have trained themselves to see rejection as something to avoid instead of something to embrace. The fastest way to remove the fear of rejection is to change your perspective on it. Instead of seeing rejection as something that is happening to you, start seeing it as something that is happening for you. Every rejection teaches you something. It sharpens your skills, strengthens your resilience, and brings you closer to the right opportunity. The most successful people in the world are not those who avoid rejection. They are the ones who have been rejected the most. They have simply trained themselves to reframe rejection as progress instead of failure. If you look at history, every major breakthrough has come from people who refuse to let rejection define them. Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team, but instead of quitting, he used that rejection to fuel his work ethic. Walt Disney was told he lacked imagination. Oprah Winfrey was fired from her first TV job. These people did not let rejection stop them because they knew it was just part of the journey. They saw it as proof that they were taking action, pushing boundaries, and moving toward their goals. One of the most powerful things you can do is actively seek out rejection. Instead of avoiding situations where you might hear no, put yourself in them deliberately. Ask for the raise, make the phone call, approach the person, apply for the opportunity. The more you expose yourself to rejection, the less power it has over you. Over time, you will train your brain to see rejection as a normal part of growth rather than something to fear. Reframing rejection is the key to resilience. Instead of asking, why did this happen to me? Ask, what can I learn from this? Instead of thinking, I'm not good enough, think, this is preparing me for something greater. The moment you change your mindset about rejection, it stops being a roadblock and becomes a stepping stone. Every rejection is simply a redirection towards something better. When you start seeing it this way, you become unstoppable. Most people live their lives in fear of rejection because they have been conditioned to seek approval from others. From a young age, they are taught that being accepted means they are worthy and being rejected means they are not. This conditioning runs deep, shaping how they see themselves, how they interact with the world, and how they pursue their goals. The fear of rejection keeps them playing small, afraid to step outside their comfort zone, afraid to take risks, and afraid to go after what they truly want. But the truth is, rejection is not something to fear, it is something to use. The moment you stop seeing rejection as a personal attack and start seeing it as a tool for growth, everything changes. Rejection is a mirror that reflects back the areas where you need to grow. Every time you experience rejection, you are given an opportunity to learn, improve, and evolve. But most people never take advantage of this opportunity because they are too busy feeling hurt, embarrassed, or frustrated. They let their emotions take over, and instead of using rejection as feedback, they use it as an excuse to stop trying. But the most successful people in the world think differently. They see rejection as information, not a verdict. They analyze it, ask what they can learn from it, and then use that knowledge to get better. One of the biggest mistakes people make is assuming that rejection is a sign that they are not good enough. They internalize it, allowing it to shape their identity and limit their potential. But rejection is rarely about them. It is about the situation, the timing, or the preferences of the other person. If a business investor turns you down, it does not mean your idea is worthless. It simply means it was not the right fit for them. If someone rejects you in a relationship, It does not mean you are unlovable. It simply means you are not the right match for them. When you stop taking rejection personally, you free yourself from unnecessary pain and self-doubt. The people who achieve the most in life are those who have been rejected the most. They understand that rejection is a numbers game. If you ask one person for an opportunity and they say no, it might feel like failure. But if you ask 100 people and 10 say yes, you are now in the game. The problem is that most people never reach that 10th yes because they give up after the first no. They assume rejection means stop, when in reality, rejection is simply part of the process of finding the right opportunity. The most resilient people in the world use rejection as fuel. They don't just accept it, they embrace it. They know that every rejection brings them closer to their next breakthrough. They keep knocking on doors, knowing that eventually the right one will open. The difference between people who succeed and people who stay stuck is not talent, intelligence, or luck. It is the willingness to keep going in the face of rejection. They refuse to let rejection define them, and because of that, they build an unstoppable level of confidence. Rejection is only painful when you resist it. The moment you start embracing it, it loses its power over you. Instead of avoiding situations where rejection is possible, seek them out. Put yourself in environments where you will hear no, because the more you do, the more desensitized you become. Eventually, rejection no longer feels like failure, it feels like progress. Every rejection is a sign that you are taking action, stepping up, and moving forward. It is proof that you are in the game. And the more you play, the more chances you have to win. The key to confidence is not avoiding rejection. It is mastering the art of moving forward in spite of it.